Piper McLean is a character from the Heroes of Olympus and Trials of Apollo, and in this video, I'll explain and go over her life, from her childhood and to the events of the Heroes of Olympus. As always, spoiler warning, and with that, let's get started. Piper McLean was born to a mortal actor named Tristan McLean, and the goddess of love Aphrodite on June 3. Piper also had a grandfather named Tom, who gave her the name Piper, which was named after Piper's strong singing voice. Growing up, Piper lived with her father, and she was always curious as to who her mother was, as her father never explained Aphrodite to her. Once when Piper was little, she and her father passed by a meat processing plant, and the smell made Piper a vegetarian. As an actor, Tristan McLean was always unavailable for his daughter, and Piper felt lonely back at home. Because of this, she started stealing to get her father's attention, and she managed to get away with it through charm speaking. As a child of Aphrodite, Piper inherited a rare ability called charm speak, and she used it unconsciously at times whenever talking to people. At one point, she even talked to a car dealer and managed to steal a BMW from him, but things turned out bad when the car dealer that owned the BMW pressed charges against Piper, calling her a thief and how she had tricked them. Instead of going to jail, Piper's dad's assistant Jane made arrangements for Piper to go to a wilderness school for delinquent kids. Once there, she met a demigod named Leo Valdez, and they quickly became friends. Eventually, Jason Grace, a Roman demigod, came to the school as well, and the mist intervened with Piper and Leo's memories. The mist gave fake memories to them about Jason, telling them that Jason was their best friend. Piper ended up falling in love with Jason, and she tried to get close with him. At one point, she was able to get him alone, and the two kissed under the stars. They began dating after that, but little did Piper know that all those memories were fake, and that Jason didn't know who she was. So now, let's go to the lost hero. We meet Piper holding hands with Jason on a bus. Jason wakes up and gets confused as to who she is, which greatly hurt Piper's feelings. Shortly after this, the class goes to the Grand Canyon, and they meet Dylan. Dylan was a classmate of theirs who was flirting with Piper, and suddenly, Dylan transformed into a monster called Aventus. Piper tries to fight him off, but she is thrown down the skywalk. Jason catches her, and she witnessed Dylan kidnap Coach Hedge. The three of them were picked up by Annabeth, Chase, and Butch, demigods from Camp Half-Blood, and they soon arrived in camp. Annabeth gives Piper a tour and shows her Catoptris, a knife used by Helen of Troy. That night, Jason was given a quest to save Hera, and he picked Piper and Leo to join him. At that moment, Piper was claimed by Aphrodite, and she became friends with her half-siblings Lacey and Mitchell. The only person who didn't accept Piper in the cabin was her half-sibling Drew Tanaka. Drew was the head of the Aphrodite cabin, and she was horrible to Piper. Piper got angry at Drew because Drew used charm speak to make the rest of her siblings follow her, and the two had a heated argument. The next day, Piper meets with Jason and Leo to see Festus, a bronze dragon that Leo had, and they rode it to Boreas' place. Chione, the snow goddess, attacks them, and this makes the three of them fly off. On the ride, Piper falls asleep, and she wakes up on their landing. There, Piper and Jason got captured by Cyclopses. Leo managed to rescue them, and Piper learns of Leo's fire ability. They then met Medea, a sorcerer who managed to charm speak Leo and Jason into fighting each other. Horrified, Piper uses her charm speak against Medea, and she ultimately saves them from killing each other. The three fight off Medea, and they find Coach Hedge. They escape, and they ended up meeting with Laertes and King Midas. Piper and Leo get turned into gold by Midas, and Jason saved them all by killing Midas and knocking out Laertes. Piper was turned back to normal, and they soon met Lycaon, or the first werewolf. The Hunters of Artemis saved them, and Thalia Grace, the leader of the Hunters and Jason's sister, led them to Aeolus' place. The place is then attacked, and they went to Mount Diabolo to save Piper's father, who was kidnapped. There, a giant named Enceladus attacked them. The trio managed to defeat the giant with the help of Zeus's lightning, and they find Tristan McLean. Tristan was mentally broken from the chaos, and he was brought to an airport. Before this, Piper was given a potion from her mother to erase memories, and Piper gives this to her father to ease his mental pain. It only erased Tristan's short-term memories, meaning Tristan only forgot his kidnapping and the fight that happened in Mount Diabolo. They then met Chione, who planned to raise Gaia and another giant named Peripheron. A fight breaks out, and Piper used her charm speak to convince Gaia to keep sleeping, while Leo fought Chione and Jason fought off the giant. After this, the trio goes back to Camp Half-Blood, and Piper confronts Drew. She makes a duel against Drew to get the title of head counselor, but Drew backs off because she learned just how powerful Piper was through the quest Piper just went through with Jason and Leo. Later that day, Piper meets with Coach Hedge, who tells her that her father doesn't remember anything, and that he thought that Piper was in a different school. Piper then goes to Jason, and they bond together. Piper thinks to herself that she doesn't know if Jason loves her back, as Jason already got his memories back. Soon, they go to the Hephaestus cabin with Leo. There, Piper and the rest deduce that Jason was from a different camp, and that Percy Jackson must have been in Camp Jupiter. Piper doesn't technically appear in the Son of Neptune, but there are a few mentions of her. Percy sees Piper in a dream, and there, Piper helps Leo and Jason construct the Argo 2. Piper is mentioned again by Cyclopses that they encountered in Lost Hero, and how the Cyclopses want to get revenge on them. That's all we ever get of Piper in that book, so let's go to the Mark of Athena. We meet Piper aboard the Argo 2 with Annabeth, Jason, Coach Hedge, and Leo. The ship sails to Camp Jupiter, and once there, Piper met Reyna Ramirez-Arellano, the female praetor of the camp. Around this time, Piper and Jason were dating, and this made Reyna jealous, as she was also in love with Jason. Jason gave Piper a tour of New Rome, and suddenly, Leo was possessed by an Eidolon, and he was forced to fire at the Roman camp. The Romans got outraged, and they started to attack the Seven. In the chaos, Jason got knocked out by a brick that was going to hit Piper, but luckily, the Seven managed to escape on the Argo 2. Piper tended to Jason while he was unconscious, and while doing so, she saw visions on her knife Catoptris. There, she saw a place called Topeka 32 in Kansas, and she along with Percy and Jason decided to check it out. Once they arrived there, they met Bacchus, the Roman wine god, and he told them to go see Phorcys to get information on Gaia. At that moment, Bacchus suddenly disappeared, as Eidolons inhabited Percy and Jason. The Eidolons made the two of them fight each other, and Percy was able to knock Jason out. Piper uses her charm speak to make Blackjack, Percy's Pegasus, knock Percy out, and it worked. Piper brought them both back to the ship, and a meeting was held. There, they talked about Annabeth's quest to follow the Mark of Athena, and the Eidolons they encountered with Leo, Jason, and Percy. Piper used her charm speak to summon the Eidolons, and they showed themselves. Piper managed to make them swear in the river Styx that they'll leave them alone, and soon, they reached Charleston Harbor. Piper, Annabeth, and Hazel then get off the ship to find the ghost that Piper saw in Catoptris, which turned out to be Piper's mom, Aphrodite. The trio talks with Aphrodite for a bit, with Aphrodite telling them that Annabeth's quest was to find the Athena Parthenos. After which, they all went back to the Argo 2, and they set sail again. On their journey, they came across an island where Hercules was. Piper and Jason went down to meet Hercules, and they were tasked to get the cornucopia from Achelous. Jason and Piper managed to get the horn after Achelous told them about horrible stuff about Hercules, which made Jason and Piper realize that Hercules was not a good person. When they confronted Hercules with the horn, Piper used the cornucopia to fire food at Hercules, and Jason flew them both out of there. Later that day, they encountered Chrysaor, and Piper was held captive along with the rest. Luckily, Percy and Frank managed to trick Chrysaor to leave them. A few days later, it was Jason's birthday, and Piper and Jason went to a park to celebrate. Jason and Piper share quite a sweet moment, before Percy comes in and asks Piper if she could see the giants in Catoptris. Piper checks her knife, and she saw a vision of a stairwell, and an image of Jason, Percy, and herself drowning. The three of them went to the stairwell, and there, the vision of them drowning became a reality. Nymphs filled the place with poisonous water, and to fight this, Piper saved them all by using the cornucopia. From the nymphs, they learned the location of the giants Otis and Ephialtes, the giants Percy asked Piper about earlier. They met the giants, and a fight breaks out. There, Nico Angelo, a demigod son of Hades, was captured in a jar, and Piper helped defend Nico against other monsters in the area, while Jason and Percy fought the giants. Suddenly, a Hydra attacked, and Percy used the nearby fireworks to defeat it. The room exploded, and Piper was knocked out in the chaos. We meet Piper again being taken care of, and she was present when they decided to go save Annabeth, who had followed the Mark of Athena. Piper and the rest helped bringing the Athena Parthenos inside the ship, and she witnessed Percy and Annabeth falling into Tartarus. Piper and the rest discussed their next route to Epirus, and now, let's go to the House of Hades, the 4th book. In this book, we don't immediately meet Piper, but it can be assumed that she helped the rest sail to Epirus. We finally see Piper during a meeting that Jason held. The team started discussing their situation, when suddenly, Cercopes attacked Piper and Coach Hedge. Jason and Leo managed to save them, and later that day, Piper talks to them about the prophecy. She forms a theory on the line of the prophecy that stated, "To storm or fire, the world must fall." Piper deduced that the storm part referred to Jason's storm powers, and that the fire part was Leo's fire abilities. She also thinks that the world meant Gaia's defeat, and not necessarily the end of the world. A couple more events happen in this book, before Keone and her brothers barge in, and she blasts Leo out of the ship, and Jason was frozen to a block of ice. Piper was held captive by Keone's brother Zethys, and Keone tells her that Gaia would soon wake up, and recreate the world for the better. As they talked, Piper desperately thought of a solution, and realized that Keone's weakness was fire. The only source of fire around her was Festus, who Leo had previously turned off, and it gave Piper an idea. She used her charm speak to wake Festus up, and it worked. Festus torched Keone's brothers, and in the confusion, Piper managed to run to Keone with her knife and stab Keone in the chest. Keone burst into dust, and at that moment, a bomb that Zethys had exploded. Winds burst out from it, and it drove their ship to the southern tip of Africa. Soon enough, they met Leo, and they decided to go to the Necromantion with Nico. Once inside, they are quickly attacked by monsters, and Leo and Hazel got separated from the rest. After Jason gave Frank his praetorship, Piper and the rest meet up with Hazel and Leo, who were fighting Clydius. Percy and Annabeth got out of Tartarus through the Doors of Death elevator, and they all charged against Clydius. Clydius was defeated thanks to their teamwork, and they all shadow traveled out of there with the help of Nico and Hazel. Once out, they meet with Reyna, and they talked about Reyna bringing the Athena Parthenos to Camp Haplid with Nico and Coach Hedge. In the last portion of this book, we see Piper learn sword fighting with Hazel and Annabeth. And now, let's go to the Blood of Olympus. Piper along with Jason and Annabeth go undercover to infiltrate a meeting to get info on Gaia's plans. A fight breaks out after a Roman demigod named Michael Verus blew their cover, and Piper helped defend them against attacking suitors. Later on in the book, Piper and Annabeth go to Sparta, and they face a giant named Mimas. Piper and Annabeth manage to defeat Mimas, and soon, Piper, Leo, and Jason meet Asclepius. They get the physician's cure, and they fled to Athens. There, they went to the Acropolis underground, and meet King Kepros. Using her charm speak, Piper finds out that King Kepros planned to betray them, and Piper manages to convince him not to go with the plan. Piper, Percy, and Annabeth are quickly attacked by giants, and at that moment, the Argo too came into the battle. The gods soon joined the battle as well, and Piper fought side by side with her mother Aphrodite. The seven were transported by Zeus to Camp Haplid, where Gaia was waking up. An entire battle happens again, and Piper witnesses Leo sacrifice himself to defeat Gaia. Piper along with the rest mourns Leo's death, and a few days later, Piper and Jason sit on the roof of the Zeus cabin. They share a sweet moment before the book ends for Piper. Piper's journey in the Riordanverse doesn't end here, so tune in for part 2 on the life of Piper McLean, where we'll talk about what happens to her in the trials of Apollo. So how about you? What's your favorite Piper moment? Let me know in the comments down below.